Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Houston House. I am Patty Wood. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Economic Development at the Greater Houston Partnership. And the Greater Houston Partnership want to welcome you to Houston House. We're very proud of the programming we have set up today. For our full agenda, please scan the QR code or visit Houston.org South by Southwest. We're ready to kick off today, and I am pleased to announce our speakers today, and actually our moderators. I'm going to welcome them up. The moderator is Chris Howard, CEO of Softeq, and he's going to introduce the rest of the panel, but he's going to moderate our first session, Uncovering Your Secrets to Scaling Your Startup. Please join me in welcoming the panel.
Thank you. So, South by, right? How many people are feeling tired today? A little tired? You know, it turns out that the best way, you know what the best thing to do for a hangover? Is to drink heavily the night before. So, does it every time. All right, so we got a great panel going. Let me get my notes out. I'm just checking my Bitcoin. Just give me a second. All right, so I'd like to introduce Mitra Miller. Well, so we changed the order on me. Sunny's coming next, sorry. Sunny, just to make things interesting. Zhang is the founding partner at Born Global Ventures. Come on over, Sunny. And the founder of TrueLeap, a digital education platform for resource-constrained communities to improve global access to quality education. And she's an award-winning educator, researcher, entrepreneur, and investor, and has been focused for the past 20 years on innovation, adoption, digital marketing, social networks, and international business. Very busy, Sunny. So thank you. I'm Sunny. All right, so next we have Remington Tonar. Come on up, Remington. He's the co-founder and chief growth officer at Cart.com, where they just closed a funding round of $60 million on a valuation of $1.2 billion. So when you talk about scaling, that's scale. And he shared with me they've just crossed 1,600 employees, so that's impressive. He's a high-growth startup executive with an expertise in transforming chaos and complexity from risks into assets and taking new companies that need rapid growth from 0 to 1. Peter Thiel would be proud of you, I think.
Yeah, good Thiel reference.
So let's welcome Remington. And then last but not least, Mitra Miller. Come on, Mitra. She has 20 years of experience as an executive, consultant, mentor, and advisor to dozens of startups. She became an angel investor in early-stage companies a decade ago and currently serves as the vice president and president-elect of the Houston Angel Network, which is one of the largest and most active groups of independent angel investors in the U.S. So thank you, Mitra. So we got a great panel for you guys. How many founders do we have in the room? Yeah? How many founders are trying to scale something? Okay. So you're in the right place. That's what we're going to be talking about, the secrets of scaling your startup. We have a phrase in Texas, go big or go home, and we are here today to uncover those secrets, so let's get started. All right, first, maybe just a question for Sunny. What does it mean to scale, Sunny? You've got a startup, and you just started, and you're trying to go worldwide. So tell us about that.
Oh, testing. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for getting up early after your hangover on a Monday morning and joining us at Houston House. How many of you are from Houston? I know Joe, and how many of you are from outside Houston and outside the United States? Woohoo, go. So my name is Sunny Zhang. I actually came from academic background, teaching in business school for the past 20 years. When we founded TrueLeap, by the way, Chris also mentioned we have a venture studio called Born Global Ventures, not only focusing on immigrant foreign-born founders, but also globally scalable company. In fact, for us, scaling has to be global. In fact, the the exact word born global is a business school concept with decades of literature showing that you don't have to be mom and pop and then city, state, nationwide, and international. You can go international from day one. And that's exactly what we did at TrueLeap. We brought it out of stealth last year, and by now we're not only in the United States, but also in India and in Africa, currently with 10-year contract with the Catholic School Association, building not only software, but also technology labs and content training, analytics. So essentially, we believe in globally scalable tech startups, and we are building globally scalable tech startups. For us, scale means born global, go global. Thanks. And Houston is the perfect place to be, by the way. We just, since it's Houston House, right? We have 90+ consulates. So in other words, wherever you come from, Houston is the global launch pad that you can actually take the shortcut and go everywhere, regardless of your, actual distance. And hopefully we could show you how we did it, and let's do this together. Thanks.
So, Sunny, I think this is an important point because I think a lot of startups, they think, hey, I need to scale very locally, right? But you were very deliberate in starting internationally, which is kind of a scary concept for a lot of people. Why did you decide to go global right from the start?
Excellent question. We all know product market fit, right? Now, I want you to walk away with product market founder investor fit. Go beyond. Let's start with product market fit. It's education. As I mentioned, as much as I love teaching, I'm also frustrated by the dinosaur. You all know what I'm talking about, right? This industry that's supposed to be preparing the future talents is so overdue. But we also understand, unfortunately, in the United States, it's not hot or sexy or fancy, like some of the other areas. There's a lot of resistance because we are the earlier adopters of the last wave technology. So in other words, when it comes to the next round, we're actually behind. Remember the smartphone days, mobile phone days? I still have a landline when I moved to a new house to install Wi-Fi, install the internet. This is because it takes a little time to get over that resistance to innovation. Now, on the other hand, emerging market, it's a green field. A lot of investors know that term, right? There's no resistance. So in other words, education is also highly valued when it comes to dispensable income, as opposed to, just exemplified by all the unicorns in edtech. Let's say China, they wiped it. And then India, if you look at where does the money go in emerging market, there's a market pool, which is also the reason we grew so fast. There's a need in the market, right? But then as founders, like I mentioned, product market founders, I came here as an international student. Anyone? International student? Quick fact, 25% of unicorn founders came to the United States as international students. And guess what's their percentage among students? 4%. So 4% of them built 25%. And, immigrant founder, 55%. Anyways, long story short, that's how I met my co-founder, also the father of my 2 children. And we build businesses, we invest, we build startups. But there's the product market founder fit. And our investors, too, they all come from a global background. So when the stars line up, the scaling is unstoppable. I'll stop here because I can't wait to hear Remington, our fastest growing unicorn in Texas. Amazing, amazing scale. So I just have to wrap it up. Thank you.
Thanks, Sunny. Yeah, it's an important point. Houston is such a diverse city and a global city, so you can scale globally and start in Houston to do that. And speaking of scaling, Tonar's a little farther along than you, Sunny. I think you're going to get to 1.2 billion in just a little bit. But Tonar, Remington, just tell me a little bit about your journey and how you got there.
Yeah, well, Cart.com's had an interesting journey when it comes to scaling. We've gone from, starting the company at the end of the pandemic in 2020 and late 2020 to now being hundreds of millions in revenue, 1,600 employees, unicorn valuation, all in a few years. Global footprint, employees in Europe and Mexico, across the United States, multiple offices, and we're in the commerce and logistics space, so we operate logistics and fulfillment centers nationwide. And so we've had a lot of physical scale, organizational scale, financial scale in a very short period of time. And I think for us, when a lot of people talk about scale colloquially, they often mean to say revenue growth, most typically, right? But when we talk about how you scale, what we're really talking about is scalability, right? And what is scalability? Really, it's about how all of the components of a system, in this case a company, respond to a change in size. So as that company goes up in size or down in size, do all of the components of that system adapt to support that growth, or in some cases you may want to scale back actually, but whatever the change is, do the components of the system actually morph and adapt to support that? And I think with Cart.com, we built an organization that was able to scale with like the actual customer and revenue growth of the company, so that we could extract super linear kind of ratios out of our revenue versus profit, out of our EBITDA, and of course, as we all know today, profitability is extremely important for startups in this poor venture funding environment. And so having an organization that scales not just at the top line, right, not just in terms of customer growth or revenue growth, but having an organization where every component, every person, every process, every system, every tool and technology, all your structures, your org chart, right, actually adapts with the organization, so that the whole becomes greater than the sum of the parts.
And you do that right at the beginning, like when you're like 5, 10 people, or when you say you're deliberate about setting it up for scale, and how do you do that?
Yeah, we and Sonny's a lifelong business educator of entrepreneurs. I teach a class at Rice University School of Business now, and most of the stuff that we taught, Cart.com just kind of burnt that playbook and went a different direction. When we started, we had what I call a tribe of chiefs strategy, where most of our early hires were extremely senior people. We didn't have a lot of doers. We had a lot of thinkers, a lot of idea people, but these were folks that had done it before, that knew how to scale a company, that knew different types of skills, different types of people and approaches you needed at each incremental stage of the company. And I think that helped us a lot in the early days. And because we were set up that way from day one, we were more able to ramp up quickly and accommodate that growth, because we had people who had worked in larger organizations, had worked in fast-growing organizations before, and they had seen that done previously, rather than hire a lot of neophyte entrepreneurs and people who are doing entrepreneurship for the first time, for whom that scale would be shocking and perhaps even disarming to them.
Back this, when you come to Houston, for those that are friends from everywhere else, you will notice that Houston entrepreneurs, I'm sure from investors' perspective too, are not college dropouts kind of entrepreneurs. They're actually very successful, either senior executive from the industry, corporate world, or academics that's been teaching for 20 years.
I'm in the college dropout category, so anyway.
Yeah, but with decades of experience, right? So when it comes to scaling, it's almost like the learning curve is not like you have to figure out how to cross border, or how to figure out how. They've done it before, so the speed is really day and night. Yeah.
Well, let's take it over to Mitra for a minute. Now, Mitra, you see a lot of startups at Han, right? And a lot of pitches, and so you see them very early. So maybe talk about what you've seen there, and maybe some of the startups and how they approach or should be approaching scaling.
Absolutely. So as a former co-founder and an executive in a lot of startups as well, one of the great things is, because I've lived your journey, that makes me a better investor. And I know what works and what doesn't work. And sort of building on what both Remington and Sonny were saying, we're looking for expertise. There are many, many, many great ideas with passionate founders, and they die a sad death. Right? We all know that 90% of the startups are going to fail. The things that I see that mean that they're more investable, which is what I'm looking for, the better chance of success and being able to scale, is if they are first-time founders, are they surrounding themselves with top quality people? They're building out their team with experienced people, and or they're advisors. So when I look at advisors, and I look at a lot of startups, and I see, oh, it's all my business school professors. Oh my gosh, that is not the thing to do.
Professors are the worst, right, Sonny?
Nothing against business school professors, but there can be, right? But in general, Academics haven't lived this. Sunny is the grand exception here. Most business school professors have not. A lot of your advisors, we're looking for people who actually know your industry extremely well. Here's the first thing I would tell you. Go make your dream list of the top 10 to 20 people in your industry that you want to be on your board of advisors. Then go figure out how to meet all of them and listen. Don't ask them to be your advisor right away. Go listen. Find out what they're doing. How can you help them? How can you learn? And if you ask enough great questions, that will open up a dialogue, and then you'll get one of them to be on your board of advisors. When you do that, then investors like Chris and me, and we're going to say, okay, first of all, you've got the right people involved from the beginning, just like Remington was saying, and getting that first advisor, and then that person's Rolodex is going to lead to employees and investors and everything else, and to the people you need to actually help you build your company. And so that's what I would say.
Mitra, like young entrepreneurs also can't be threatened by bringing in people with more expertise than they have. You see this a lot of times, right, where there's a young first-time entrepreneur and they hire all their friends, and they may even know some of these highly qualified people, but they don't want to make them part of the company because they're afraid that will usurp their position and their role as the founder, right? And that's something I think a lot of young entrepreneurs just need to get over.
So we all know and we all pay lip service to diversity all the time, right? We need diversity. But diversity means across every spectrum there is. Age, stage, experience, background, cultural, you name it, industry. You need to surround yourself with a ton of diversity of opinions, expertise, and bring those people to you. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. There's this bias against, oh, I shouldn't be bringing in these super experienced people. No, you should. I actually know a founder who I think is going to absolutely kill it. He's 23 years old, started the company when he was 19, and he told me, he's like, and the first thing I did was I brought in all my co-founders who were my buddies. And let me tell you about the crash and burn that was. So he said, I learned, and now he's replaced all of them. Everybody else has 10 to 20 to 25 years more experience than he does. And he's still the CEO, he's still the visionary, but he is learning from them like crazy.
Bravo, Mitra. You know, there's a saying you see everywhere on the internet, look for like-minded people. Stop doing that. Look for different-minded people in every spectrum so that you can maximize your collective intelligence. You also maximize your network. I mean, I'm just translating everything you say because my research background, the behavioral science is how do you diffuse new product in a huge network as opposed to, like, it's all about the diverse networks, almost like your point. If you have that centrality of different networks, you penetrate much, much faster. Whereas you're stuck in the homogeneous network. So it's really about not just talking diversity by the look, it's the different-minded people that actually can help you tap into new markets and scale your business. Back to the topic, Chris.
No, that's an important point. But if I'm sitting in the audience and I'm a founder and I'm maybe a young guy and I'm like, oh, that sounds great. I want a 20, 25-year-old advisor. I want to build this, crack team. How do I do that? How do I attract those people to my startup in order to get that kind of experience in those advisors? Any hints, Remington?
I mean, I think first it's about strength of vision and conviction in what you're trying to do, right? Nobody is going to join a startup that has a founder that oscillates on the value of what they're doing, right? Or whether or not they will be successful. And we hear about the delusion of entrepreneurs, and there is certainly some of that, right? I mean, I consider myself largely delusional a large amount of the time. Yeah, you have to, right? Exactly. It's almost essential to being successful, especially in the early days when all you have is that vision and that conviction, right? Before you have any assets, before you have a team, right? It's like having that conviction. And look, we say, which is true, hope is not a strategy, and you can't rely on hope. But in the early days, sometimes it's the only thing you have. And so, how do you lean into that to really convince people that, hey, this is going to work, and kind of transfer that same sense of hope to them. And so I think in the early days, it's really just about, that strength of vision and conviction to get people to say, hey, I want to be a part of this because I believe in what this person is doing.
Okay, Mitra, you have something to add?
Yeah, I was going to say, so the other thing is a lot of founders are shy, and they aren't willing to put themselves out to meet people and engage people. And you've got to get over that. Like right now, you just have to tell yourself, I'm an extrovert, and you need to get out and you need to talk to people, and you need to get feedback on your idea constantly from smart people, not from your buddies sitting at the bar, but going to smart people like the people on this panel, going to venture capitalists, going to people who are in related industries. And that is so important, getting that constant feedback and asking for it. And that's how you want to bring smart people to you. Talk to other smart people who are like, you need to meet this person. They share something similar. And that's how then you can start finding those people and drawing them to you. But if you're not getting the word out, they're not going to know about you. You're looking for the smartest people, and the way you're going to find them is through your network and talking to other smart people. We tend to gravitate to positive, like-minded people, even if they're in different industries. So I would say spending a lot of time trying to intentionally find people who understand your business and can help get you connected, that's so important. And yes, I know as a founder, you're crazy busy coding all night long as well. Get that. But you have to find a balance and do both.
Yeah, if I may add, Chris, I already mentioned the network thinking, right? I want everybody to start analyzing your current network and answer me. Do you feel like you have a star network or a galaxy network? I'm not even getting into network theory. Just, do you feel like the people who are around you are all circling you as a star network where you're in the center? And by the way, we can use data to show you, even your email, there's analysis, you can map out your own network. Versus you have a star network where there's a lot of strong star. You have a galaxy network where you actually have a lot of stars in that network that are interconnected with each other. What do you feel? And by the way, this is empirical research out of Columbia University showing with 10 years of longitudinal data that, I'll just give you the answer. I'm not going to ask you to raise hands in this case because
You're going to test us here, Sonny.
when you have a galaxy network, you're less likely to fail as opposed to when you have a star network. And let me give you an example. One of the founders, they have such a star network, the only external connection. In fact, he's not even the center of the star. His administrative assistant was the star. And of course, when something happens, it's almost like when you have a star network, when you fail, you fail. I'm sorry. When you fall, you fall. When you have a galaxy network, you can't even fall. Do you know what I mean? You bounce back. So that's the kind of, to answer your question, how do you intentionally build a galaxy network where everybody can add tremendous amount of value? And how are you going to pick people? I want to introduce another term for your consideration. I mean, again, I'm an outlier. I challenge everything that's out there, which is go-to-market versus come-from-market. Come-from-market. Not like you build something and now let's go look, let's launch a campaign as an afterthought. You scale by designing your solution from the market. And similarly, when you build the network, whether it's your advisor or your investor and your team, and not just your internal team, but your strategic partnership, always think about come from market because they have the deepest, and that's also the current shift of the venture landscape. Rather than chasing valuation, chase your customer because they are the ones that bring you value and not just number as valuation. So I guess, come from market and build your galaxy. That would be my answer to your question, Chris.
Okay, Remington, looked like you were going to say something
Well,
there.
I just earlier, Sonny, you were talking about the risk of looking for like-minded people, and Mitra, you picked up on that as well. And then with the galaxy analogy, really, I mean, we're talking about complementarity within systems, right? And rather than look for like-minded people, I think founders should look for a complementary people, right? Where you have founders that augment and build on one another's strengths and cover for each other's weaknesses, so that, to your galaxy analogy, right, you have a system where all the gravitational forces in that system are supportive of one another, so you cannot fail. And you need that to scale, right? You cannot scale without that level of complementarity across the system or network, right?
I think that's one of the secrets, really, and I think it is something that founders miss, is that it's not about the engineering, it's not about the product, it's about networking, and it's something that introverts and geeks like me tend to kind of put less emphasis on, but you really do have to build your galaxy. That sounds like a startup idea, by the way. Like I analyze my LinkedIn to see if I'm a galaxy or a star. Oh, really? Okay. So there's a dissertation out there. You can read it. So there's an...
By the way, that's not here.
So yeah, build your network. I mean, I've seen a lot of founders also, they don't value events, and sometimes the most important thing of an event is what happens in between. Is that
Always.
networking? Yeah, and what about this concept of viability versus scalability? You can build a viable startup, but it's not necessarily scalable. Mitra, do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. So viable means it's going to live. That's a good thing, right? We want to live, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be world-changing and going to affect millions or billions of people. Scalable is it going to improve the lives of millions and billions of people? So lots of worthwhile businesses will impact hundreds of people or thousands of people. Scalability, to me, and what I'm looking for, because I only invest in companies that I think are massively scalable, like a cart.com, can impact millions and billions of people. So when you measure it that way, to me, that's what the difference is.
Because a dry cleaner, your corner dry cleaner, is viable, right?
Absolutely,
that's a viable business,
and
right?
that is a wonderful, necessary business. But if you turn into, the next dry cleaning business that takes over the entire nation, and you change the entire business model, now you've changed the whole paradigm.
And the other element I think is important, and Chris, just to add on to your question, is in addition to being viable and scalable, companies also have to be sustainable in that they're sustainably scalable, right? So that you can continue to scale and continue to penetrate the market and drive value to customers over time, rather than just be viable, be scalable, and then at some point flame out, right? And so there has to be some sustainable scalability in there as well. So I always like to say, is the company viable, scalable, sustainable, and in the case, if you're on the investment side, exitable, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
If I may,
sorry, go ahead.
If I may add, in fact, that's the differentiator between lifestyle, traditional business versus venture-backable tech startup. So let me redefine. I don't even think, we use startup almost like we abuse this word nowadays. I'm a founder of the startup, which is a consultancy. That is a viable business, but it's not a scalable, it's not tech or tech-enabled business. And there's also a lot of recent debate about, you shouldn't be going after venture capital. Of course you should not when it's not a venture-backable, scalable company. So for us, scalability is a prerequisite. And to add to Remington's point, it also has to be sustainable, because when you design your business model, like I mentioned, everything we're doing in Africa, for example, the analytics is one of the ecosystem elements in addition to software, hardware, training, content, because with that, you reinforce your users to show the effectiveness, you optimize. So when you design the business model, you already have the scalability and the sustainability, and then it becomes a flying wheel. You don't have to constantly do the business development to get the next contract. You can actually have this flying wheel go and contaminate more territories. So if I may add a little data, because Chris, you asked earlier about why did we go after emerging market. Speaking of millions and billions of people, there are 2 billion students in the whole world. 80% of them are actually out there in emerging market. I mean, here, if we do school by school, I can't. I mean, there's also a word we see a lot, like, help one student at a time or one entrepreneur at a time. I mean, no offense, but we can't afford that. There are like billions of students out there. If you do one at a time, it's too late. The sky's falling and we're still doing one at a time. Scalability for us, we go after where the mass is. When 80% of the students out there in emerging market don't have anything, which is a green field with no resistance, we capture that. And of course, we're also in the United States. When the dinosaur dies, I don't want to fight with the dinosaurs, as you know how resistant they are. So I just wanted to use these examples to amplify the message of, it's almost like bottom line. Like, we have to pause as an industry, like venture and startup ecosystem. We have to pause and redefine these terms. What is a startup? So I love the question of viability and scalability and adding to the sustainability. As an investor, as a founder, what kind of business is something that's worth your time and your energy and the rest of your very short, limited life, so we can together make great impact and great return?
Chris, I want to pick up on something Sunny was saying about kind of tech enablement, right? Because there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are venture-backed, that are doing amazing things that aren't necessarily what we might traditionally call at least software enabled, right? But I think the reason we talk about tech enablement, right, or some type of enabling factor is because ultimately when we talk about scale, we're talking, and the systemic impact Sunny's talking about, what we're talking about is super linear scalability, where for every unit you put in, you get 2 or more out, right, every time. And that number goes up incrementally every time, right? And like that's what software, at least traditionally, allows you to do, where you've built it once, but you can sell it over and over and over and over again. So you put 1 unit in, get 1,000 units out, right? And so like, how do you make, whether your startup is, the dry cleaner, right? There perhaps is a way to make dry cleaning more super linearly scalable, so it's not dollar for dollar. But like, so even if you're in very traditional type of business, right, and you're a more traditional entrepreneur, there's always ways to try to extract super linear scalability out of what you're doing, and like that should be, I think, the lens.
Can I add? Because it's really, I love how Remington put it. I mean, every time when I talk to him, I felt like there's so much learning. Of same thing with Mitra and Chris. He just used the word linear scalability. It's another word I use a lot, capital efficiency. It's almost like whenever we think, right? I mean, every founder should consider yourself an investor too. It's about the return on investment that you put in together. We talk about 10x all the time. Also think about 1/10. How can you do things at 1/10 of the cost and get 10x of the impact? And then you multiply, you all of a sudden have 100x. It's also not just software per se. Like, we're building computer labs in DRC. Another quick example, one lab of 50 computers will onboard thousands of students, and that's reoccurring. Like, it's incoming student, no churn, minimum turn. And, I just lied. It's really just 10 workstations with 50 monitors, because we're not doing gaming and high-end kind of. I'm just saying, like, when you scale, you need to think about your capital efficiency. You don't want to just burn yourself, which also happens sometimes. A lot of fast-growing startup scale fast and kill themselves because they weren't really linear scaling with the capital efficiency and the return on investment. Return on investment. In other words, always balance that, growth, whatever you define, and also the revenue, the profit, and the return when you put all the finance into the equation.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sunny, for sharing that. This is Houston House. Let's talk a little bit about Houston. Sunny already mentioned number 3 for the number of consulates. Number 1 best place for foreign business, actually. And
beat Miami to get that number 1.
Yeah, that's great.
Anyone, no offense to Miami, but we are number 1.
Go Houston. And also, I think it's one of the most diverse cities in the United States, both from the traditional sense, but also from the scaling, like you said, with the universities, your access to advisors, access to people that have scaled businesses before. I wanted to ask Remington, we feel Houston is an at-scale city, right? And you recently moved your headquarters back from Austin to Houston, and scalability was one of the factors in that. So maybe talk a little bit about why you did that.
Yeah, we love Austin, and we've loved our time in Austin. Austin's it's a great city. And we still have hundreds of employees based in Austin and the Austin area. But as our company has scaled, right, like past, the kind of traditional startup stage into, the scale up stage, really, we needed access to a larger network of resources, especially in the HR, legal, financial arenas, but then also access to greater infrastructure to bring people in from all over the world, right? Host people in a larger office space, right? And so when we think about Houston, we think about access to at scale infrastructure, at scale amenities, at scale workforce and talent pools. And Austin, of course, has grown tremendously quickly, but still is not at the scale that like a Houston or even a Chicago are. And as we grew as a company, we recognized that we needed access to more of those amenities, which include things as mundane as the airport, right? It's just there's more accessibility in and out of Houston globally. And now that we have a national and global workforce, things like that become very important. And you don't need or even think of those things when you're a younger company and you're, like 10 guys or 10 people, in a room, right? So,
Yeah. But also still capital efficient. So in Houston, you get all those amazing resources and you're not paying nosebleed prices. Better cost of living. Certainly, we don't, for those of you who are not from Texas, we don't have income tax here. That's an amazing advantage, whether you're in Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, anywhere in this state. There's a reason why big business keeps moving to Texas, because we're a very pro-business state, and you don't have to pay income taxes individually as you do in a lot of the East Coast states. So I'm a former New Yorker, love New York, but you're going to pay state income tax, city income tax, you pay tax on every bridge, road, everything else you ever do. You get taxed to death. You come to Texas, most of that goes away. And there are even some really great tax advantages as you're growing your business here. And in Houston, you're this tier 1 global city with a low cost of living, with amazing infrastructure, with dynamic, amazing people. We're obviously all a little biased, but I will tell you, as a former New Yorker who then lived here in Houston doing here in Austin doing startups, I moved to Houston, and I jokingly say, if New York and Austin had a baby, it would be Houston, because you have the friendly people with the big city culture. Right? We've got the restaurants, we've got the museums, we've got the opera, we've got all the things that amazing Austin doesn't have. Now, you want to bicycle up big mountains? Austin. You want to eat in great restaurants and go see the opera? Houston.
Absolutely. Let me add to the restaurants. Houston is also, in addition to #1 place for foreign business and international businesses, #1 eat out city in the United States. You can find a restaurant coming from every corner on earth. The international cuisine is absolutely amazing. And why? Because we have global talents. There's a reason food is here, because people are here. One quick fact, 1 in 4 Houstonians are foreign born. And, we already mentioned 90 plus consulates, at least 150 languages spoken in Houston. So that is the reason we're really this hub that attracts global talents. And even my consul general friends who's been all over the world, they feel at home when they come to Houston right away, and they don't have to feel like, a few months
that is
finally
so
feel
true.
comfortable.
I hear that all the time.
Yeah,
from people who come
all over the world.
They think, oh, we're going to go to Houston. It's going to be this backwater weird thing. It's like, no, it's this massively cosmopolitan city where people who move their startups are so excited.
Yeah.
They always find their people, but they also find the diversity of ideas that are going to challenge you to do new things and grow past where you currently are.
Yeah, and we also have a hidden talent pool. When I say hidden talent pool, is they're not only in universities where you usually feel like, oh, we want to stay close to UT Austin. Of course, we have Rice, we have UH, we have amazing universities, which naturally also attract global high-level talents. We have #2 Fortune 500 companies in Houston. Speaking of come from market, if you're enterprise software, you have customers right there. In fact, I have a lot of friends who moved from the Bay Area to Houston because they believe it's more important to stay close to their customers as opposed to investors, because money doesn't have to have a location, but stay close to the marketplace, and of course the talents. And I'm telling you, in the in all the Fortune 500 companies, we have top talents. You name it, not only from universities, but all over the world. Like, I used to live in an area called Energy Corridor, where all the oil and gas companies are located. Chris is actually in that neighborhood too. You go to the park with your kids, you don't hear English. Seriously, everybody's speaking some language, and my neighbors are from all over the world. And, the kids growing up in that area, and all over in Houston, I'm sure Mitra's kids are somewhere here too. You grow up with very diverse peers, and you are exposed to really, culture from all over the world. So in the mind, I want to come back to, because I mentioned immigrant, it's really not about where you're born, it's about the global mentality. Native-born, American-born entrepreneurs can take companies international, global, just as anyone else, as long as you have that global mindset. And how do you nurture that? By surrounding yourself with people with global mindset and complementary skill set and network, so you can scale easily at your fingertips, because that's the kind of neighborhood we have in terms of people, food. And now what's happening is, now that we're number one city for foreign businesses, that also means we are attracting global wealth. I mean, our lead investor of pre-seed round is from Italy. A founder who took the first Italian company to IPO at New York Stock Exchange and later acquired by Tata Communication. I mean, essentially, we are not only attracting global talents, we are also attracting global wealth and foreign direct investment, because we are the rising city of the future. We are the global launchpad where you can scale internationally very quickly. And I just want to mention, if you look at the geopolitical landscape internationally right now, there's a redistribution of global talents and global wealth. So we believe they're all going to come to Houston, because Houston's the baby of Austin and New York. What can get better than that?
I don't know, how cute is that baby? That's what I don't know. That's an
big.
important point, I think, with...
It is a big baby. The birth was hard.
Yeah, so to summarize that, I think if you're a founder and you're looking to scale your startup, one way to do that is to have a global mindset. And to have a global mindset means you surround yourself with global people, right? And that kind of diversity and that kind of talent, and think big, right? So maybe one other point about founders, and maybe some of the downfalls they might have. I mean, if I'm a CEO, I'm a founder, I'm just starting out. I mean, what kind of mistakes am I making?
Can I go on that one?
Go ahead.
Okay. The investor is going to tell you the mistakes, at least from my perspective, and then you guys can talk about what you're living. But the number one thing that I see when startups come to us is when we say, oh, we're going to take a pass. They never ask why. Why are you passing? Because they're so busy trying to raise money, first of all. And second of all, they're so in love and so enamored with their company. They're not ready to hear the hard feedback about why it's not investable. They usually write me off by saying things like, and if you've ever said this, if these words have come out of your mouth, be prepared. Oh, they just don't get it. They don't understand what I'm trying to accomplish. If you have said that, beware. Because if you can't explain it to me, somebody who's been a founder, somebody who lives in the space, and somebody who invests and talks to hundreds of companies a year, if I can't get it, you didn't explain it very well. Second of all, are you willing to ask me why I'm passing and actually hear the hard messages? There are a lot of founders these days. You get a lot of love when you go to accelerators, you go to incubators, you hang out with people, you get lots and lots of love, lots of positive feedback. So great, 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 great. Who's giving you the tough messages? Are you seeking it out? Investors are a great place to start. Are you willing to take what they say right? Oh, they didn't invest in me because of blank, right? And you're going to assume you know why they didn't. No, go find out the real thing. And I will tell you, most of the time, it's because it's not scalable. I'm looking at your idea, and I either think that the idea is not scalable, the business model is not scalable, or the team is not scalable. And those are the three fundamentals. When you have those three things there, then you can get the capital and everything else that you need. But those are the first three check boxes. There are others, but if the idea, the business model, and the team isn't scalable, it's not investable. And then you can start asking the hard questions. How do I make it that? So I'm sure you guys can take it from there, but thank you. So the investor has shared a little bit.
Yeah, coachability, basically, right?
Oh, that as well. But
It's an indicator. Are they willing to hear what I have to say and take that into account?
yes.
Now, sometimes the investor's wrong because you see anybody's anti-portfolio and like, well, I passed on Google not once, not twice, but 6 times. I'm a genius. So, but yeah, it's an important point. Are they willing to listen? And then you want to get that feedback so you know how to scale. Remington, what do you have?
Well, I think, and Sunny mentioned this earlier, but your investors are also part of that system we've been talking about, and there needs to be alignment and complementarity between the company, the founders, and the investors as well. And so choosing your investors and even selecting very carefully the investors that you choose to pitch in the first place, right, is very important, not only to fundraising success, but to time efficiency as well, right? Because to your point, a lot of times, like the founders are busy raising dollars. They don't really want to meet with you after to hear about why you passed. They just want to move on and to get the raise done, right? That's all they're focused on. They're not really focused on like building, a learning cycle. They're just focused on getting through it, right? But if you've sought out investors that are highly aligned with your vision and your thesis and are comfortable with your business model, you're going to not only have greater success in closing them, but you'll also be able to get time back because that'll be more efficient. So I think creating that alignment between your investors and the company and the idea and the team, et cetera, is super important. And like then the investors that you have over time at different stages, right, if you've chosen them wisely, will either scale with you or be okay with new investors, more institutional investors coming in, because ultimately the investor base has to be able to scale as well with the company in order for the company to scale, and that may mean bringing in new investors at successive stages of the company's life cycle, but having investors at the outset that also know that hey, like at some point we're going to get diluted, some institutions are going to come over the top of us, and that's good. That's a good thing.
And we want you to do that. If that doesn't happen, then I'm not making money either. And this is, so as Remington is alluding to, this is a 10-year marriage we're getting into together. We need to be partners from the beginning. And so you've probably heard the phrase dumb money versus smart money. Everybody heard that? Familiar with that phrase? If you're not, you need to understand there are a lot of people who will write a check and will never help you again. Those are not the investors you want to take. You think the most important thing you need is money, and it's not. You need smart people who understand your business and are willing to get in the trenches with you and help and open up their Rolodexes, help you with ideas, give you that. Investors can be so much more, and they should be.
You know what, Remington? I think you just invented another word. It's investor.
I like inventing words. I'm like George W. Bush.
Yeah, I
like
know. I'm taking notes this whole time. Like Remington just not only mentioned the scalability and sustainability of scaling a business, but also investor sustainability. It's almost like you have to look long term how far this check can take me, not just financially as money, but in terms of resources and network. Like, that's really when we decide who's leading this round. If we can have someone that can take us all the way to IPO and exit, the whole path is lined up. I mean, I love how you described, when you take the check, you want to take a long-term orientation and think about not only just runway, and by the way, Houston will get you a lot longer runway for the same amount of money, but also in terms of how, what's coming next with that check. What is the network and the resources this check can bring when it comes to scalability. But I also want to get back to Chris' question of the mistakes you see. I love the investor perspective. If I also could get back on the ground from the operation perspective, from a fast scaling company, I also think, in fact, Remington emphasized this a lot. Top down versus bottom up when it comes to building your team and selecting your people. What do I mean by top down and bottom up? Top down is you align your vision, you align your mission, you align the life of your existence. And I also, personally think the best companies are not just business. It has its own soul and its own will and its own speed. You need to find people who can keep up and lead this. It's like it's a living organism. I don't know if you're feeling it. If you're not feeling it, something's not working. If your startup is really on a roll, rocking it, the startup itself is like a living organism. And when you bring people, whether it's your own team, your strategic partner, your investor, it has to be someone that's aligned at the very top level. If you think about, I don't know, sometimes it's just brain waves resonance. Like there's some kind of chemistry. I'll need to study more about what explains this at a very top level. And once that aligns, the rest is detail. You can figure out the tech stack, and whatever tool you use, what are the tactics you're gonna use. The rest will come together. But I also think, unfortunately, a lot of time when we bring you people, because it's so urgent, usually when you bring people, it's like you need to deliver this. So you just need to work on that campaign. You just need to get that, content out or whatever. So we care a lot about the technical skills. And then you're not checking, the higher level of checklist. That's what I mean by bottom up versus top down. And the top down people you are bringing, whether it's investor, your team, your partner, will go a lot longer way and make more powerful impact than, okay, do you have these skills? We need it urgently, and let's bring you. That's not going to go very far. And back to the scalability and sustainability, when you make those decisions, you have to think, all the way through this whole value chain. Yes.
I like that. I think that's another way of saying culture, right? It's brain residence. And I have to start testing for brain residence, I think, when I add to my team. But
just very quickly, the culture fit is also a little dangerous because, again, you run into the like-minded people. So I just wanted to mention that. You want to be a culture fit, not in terms of assimilation, like everybody's similar, but addition. Like it's a fit because you add to the culture while you have that alignment.
It's business culture, not just your own personal culture. That's right. Yeah. So
I would also say it should be not additive but multiplicative, right? In that, like, you add, we add one more unit and we get more than 1 + 1 = 2 out of it. Yeah, exactly.
Culture.
Okay.
Not looking for similar culture and fit, right? Because then you get narrower instead of expanding.
Well, I think we could talk for another hour, but I want to thank the panelists. So we're going to open it up for some questions and see if we have some questions from the audience. If you want to hear more from any of these fine folks up here, I will say a shameless plug. They each did an episode on my Forging the Future podcast, so go and listen to their episode. They've got some more great words of wisdom in there. So that's softeq.com/FDF. So listen to there and see if anybody has any questions. I don't know if we have a microphone, but
this is geared first to Sunny, and then
there is a microphone over here if you want to get up, but go ahead. Sorry. Line up.
Line Hotel.
Yeah, the Line Hotel. Make a line.
Like the coffee line downstairs was super long.
so I found your comments about scaling internationally quickly rather interesting, and so I wanted to kind of bifurcate this into two parts. One, how did international partners with you, I'm assuming with limited scale, approach that and say, well, great, and then secondarily, from an investor's perspective, I was under the perception that you had to have national scale first in traction before you go international. How do you see that? Because I thought that might be considered like a lack of focus or something in terms of going to international in parallel.
That's an excellent question. I'm so glad you mentioned that. In fact, as I mentioned, the concept of Born Global came out of in the 70s when business school professor were shocked to see how come the Born Global, which means day one, global market target actually grow faster, right? As I mentioned, sometimes you actually have more resistance in your own neighborhood than foreign countries where there's a green market from an investor perspective. There's a term called greenfield investment, which means there's no competitor. It's just very susceptible to innovation, to new product. So your speed of scaling, market penetration can be a lot faster. But again, it depends on specific industry, right? Education, of course, you go to emerging market, everybody I meet at South by, even when they're not in education, they're like, Sunny, you're doing the right thing. I come from Latin America, I come from Africa, I come from Asia, and this is exactly what we needed. So that also goes back to your first question, which is like, how do you engage the international investors and partners, right? For us, because Chris mentioned, we've been doing work at Born Global Ventures, a venture studio. We also added a nonprofit arm called Born Global Community, supporting and also celebrating all the global born entrepreneurs building globally scalable company. By the way, kudos to 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗪, adding another foreign-born founder, 𝗦𝗢𝗖𝗜𝗍𝗪 himself, taking a unicorn. I mean, adding to that 55%, we need to revise the data. Essentially, we already have extensive global network. And of course, being in Houston helps a lot too. We have 90 plus consulates, and they all become our ambassadors. Because the consulate's job is marketing their country and attracting.
To them, Sunny? I mean, do you go and knock on the consulate door, or
Oh,
what do you do?
I'm friends with consulates, and we, for example, Indonesia startups here. Anyone? Because they said they were coming. I don't know if the badge. All right. So, as example, I know that South by Southwest is an Austin event. But guess what? You probably didn't know this. Every time when Austin is happening after the South by time, we get to host all the startups in Houston because they would make a stop in the consulates would host a special reception. And in fact, because of that relationship, we were continuing hosting South by Southwest companies internationally during COVID even. I mean, including Indonesia, so many other countries. I know there's Singapore and Netherlands and, Brazil, Argentina, just to name a few.
So if you're a founder, go to your local consulates and try to see if they can help you.
That's actually the gap, because it's such a traditional business. I mean, in the past, they focus on trade, right? The Port of Houston is there, one of the biggest ports, most active. But there's a disconnect. So we become like the disconnect. We're actually onboarding. I mean, Mitra and I talk a lot about, on the LP side of Houston, how can we activate and onboard the traditional, family offices to venture, to inject that field to the venture side. Similarly, from international perspective, they are used to international trade, diplomacy, culture. So when we invited them for the first time to speak at Born Global Summit as part of Houston Tech Rodeos, like Houston South by Southwest, now rebranded as Hometown Roundup, we had consul generals from every continent, because they feel like for the first time there's that representation, and we're helping bridging the gap between traditional trade and technology innovation, startup and venture investment. So I hope that answers your question in terms of how we did it, utilizing our unfair advantage being in Houston. Again, Houston House, I have a job to do here, but also as example how TrueLeap really becomes this day one going global, taking I guess the greenfield market penetration advantage.
Okay.
Thank you. Excellent question. I appreciate it.
All right, next question.
So I have two questions. The first question is for everyone. So for each of you, what is the best route to finding and engaging with people who are willing to dedicate their time and energy to advising you on your idea?
Can you introduce yourself? I felt
Yes.
like I'd love to know.
Sorry.
Yeah.
My name is Karina. I have about 8 years experience in graphic design and animation, but I'm willing to expand in different areas of creativity, more specifically with a startup. So I want to know what is that way or the best way to engage or finding people to advise you on your ideas.
Let's ask Mitra that one.
To advance your personal idea?
Yes.
So you're working, so you currently have a background and you want to become a founder?
Yes.
Okay, so you're looking and you specifically want to know who to engage with to
Well, how to find those people and what's the best way to
which
engage
people?
with them.
I want to make sure I'm
Okay, no
answering
problem.
exactly what you want to know.
Yes, so I would say the industry would be that intersection between fashion, retail, and mental health.
Okay.
So yes,
And you want to know how to find the people who can help you on your journey.
yes.
Okay, so obviously, so there should be, and where are you based?
The Bay Area.
Where?
Bay Area.
Bay Area. Oh, okay.
Yes.
So first of all, finding everybody that's in the industry, right? So you need to just get to know everyone. So again, and this is going to get back to what I was saying a little bit ago, finding the thought leaders in the industry and finding out a way to be around them, listen to them, meet them, and again, I would say the thing that most people don't realize is you have your own insights, etc. Find out how you can help them, listen to what their needs are, and how you might be able to, as you're meeting various people, how can you help get other people connected? How can you be part of the ecosystem yourself? And then eventually that will lead to, as you refine your own ideas, you'll be talking to the thought leaders in that space, and you will be able to, you'll probably find your co-founders from that community. But you need to plug into it, listen a lot, absorb everything you can, build your relationships, offer to help wherever you can, including for free, right? Volunteer at everything, show up at everything, listen, learn, and then you will start. So we all talk about collisions. Collisions are when we are with the right people, having great conversations, new ideas are born. We are so much more powerful when we get together with other people. So the best idea is going to come from you plus the multiplication effect of other smart people that you are surrounding yourself with. But you have to come from an attitude of being grateful to be in the space and being willing to give back first, because that's how they're going to bring you in. They're not going to bring you in when you're like, will you be my mentor? Will you do this? Will you do that? I want to ask for a job. I want to ask for this. I want to ask for that. That's not the right mindset. You need to go in with the mindset of, I'm here, I'm grateful, how can I contribute? How can I help? You know what? I met this person the other day. I'm going to glue you together with them. What do you get out of it? Absolutely nothing. Except you're helping other people. You do enough of that, they're going to remember, and that's going to develop the relationship. So I hope that's helpful. Am I answering your question?
Yes, it is.
Okay, super.
Kind of leans into what Sunny was saying earlier about the ecosystem, well, the galaxy theory.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
I'm
let that
very-
give
I
first.
see you nodding
basically.
as well, so maybe you've got something
No,
to
I just
add.
add value everywhere always has always been a mantra
Absolutely.
of mine, and if you're always adding value, value will be given to you.
Absolutely.
I just
One
wanna
more
add to
question.
that,
Oh, go ahead, Sonny. One more time.
No, I don't have anything to add substantially, but I just want to say I'm very jealous of Mitra's kids because she gives the best advice. I felt like I just need my kids to hang out more with Mitra, maybe on a weekend.
We'll trade kids. So here's the secret.
It's a
Your
play
own
date.
kids, it's just like everything else. Your own kids don't really take your advice. No. But you can repeat what I said to them, and we'll trade. Your kids will listen to me. My kids will listen to you.
Okay, so thank you both so much. Well, all of you all. I have one last question. So based on the industries I outlined earlier, what is your opinion on the scalability of those industries? This is for Mitra specifically.
Of mental health and fashion and the intersection of the two?
Yes.
The scale. So, for the right idea, there's always scalability. Now, I mean, fashion's massively scalable. mental health it's harder, but it's doable. There are new technologies and ways to do that. The intersection of the two, that there's got to be a way, right? So almost any idea that you have should be massively scalable if you find the right business model and the right people to take it forward. And I see Remington nodding a lot. I bet he's got something great to say here too.
No, I totally agree. I mean, it's like any idea in any industry can be scalable in the right conditions with the right people and the right infrastructure and the right plan.
If I may use an analogy, I'm not going to get into specific industry because I want to give an answer that might be, it's a great question, but I want to give an answer that might be relevant to everyone. Just think about your own time and effort and money as investors and as founders. Would you put that as a drop of water in the ocean that gets lost? Or would you put that as a ray of light in the darkness? That's my answer to this question when it comes to making decisions. Would you put your money or your effort that becomes a drop in the ocean and just disappear? Or would you put the time and effort and money and make a huge difference shining in dark, even just a little ray of light? So I hope that answers your question and that helps everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that wraps it up.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our amazing panel today for our Houston House kickoff.